This video is sponsored by my class cheat sheets for Revised 5th edition. More on them later. Greetings gamers, my name is Anto, and in today's video we're going to be checking out the Epic Encounters boxes from Steamforged Games. Now I got these sent over to me for free by Steamforged, but they're not paying for this video, they don't get to see it, they don't even know that I'm actually making a video. I was like, yeah, I'll check them out, but no promises. And they get no control on the editorial of this video. So we're going to have a look at these third-party adventure boxes, and these are designed to be an adventure in a box. You get a set of miniatures and you get a little adventure that contains some encounters and some maps as well. Now I've got two here. I've got the Sanctuary of the Steelborn and the Realm of the Titan. And I want to start off by opening up the Realm of the Titan and looking at the miniatures first, and then talking about the actual adventures themselves, because I've got quite a lot to say about the adventures. So these sets come in at like 40 to 50 bucks here in the UK. And to my mind, that means you really need to be using these miniatures for more than just a session or two of D&D. That means I'm looking at these miniatures for things like Warhammer or other tabletop games. I'm looking at ways that I can use them multiple times, or I'd specifically be looking at sets that have generic enough miniatures that I could reuse them, which unfortunately means straight off the bat, these Steelborn sets don't meet my criteria, because automaton warforged style creatures, unless you're running something like Eberron or a very specific campaign, don't have a lot of reusability in most campaign settings. That being said though, for the price, oh mama, this is a big miniature. So this is the Titan that you get. Each of the Epic Encounter boxes seem to be sold as kind of a box of minions and a small adventure, and then one big boss monster. And the big boss monster comes with encounters that are designed with a bunch of interesting and unique mechanics around fighting this boss monster. And these models, I believe they are PVC. I don't believe they are injection molded polystyrene like the sprue plastic that you get from something like Games Workshop. But this one in particular is really nice. You have a beautiful molded base, which actually might be injection plastic. It feels hard enough to be. And then the model itself, because of its size, looks really cool. It's large, it's imposing. You put that down on your battlefield, your players are going to have a memorable time facing off against this. Because of the price, I'd want to be getting more than one use out of this, because I'm not paying like 50 bucks to put this down one time. So I'd want to be using it for multiple things, using it in Warhammer or something like that. I don't know whether this particular model I would use, but I know they have ones that have like large dragon style models and large like reptiles and spiders and things like that that might have more multi-purpose use. And then the Sanctuary of the Steelborn box itself. Let's just take a moment to talk about the boxes themselves, because I really do like the bright poppy magenta that they use for the branding. It does give me very Morkborg vibes though. So I think if you were in a game store and you saw this and you were familiar with TTRPGs, I think your first thought on this would be, this is a Morkborg thing and not a D&D thing. So while I like the branding, I think that it gives off the wrong kind of vibe to those in the know, but it is standout enough that you see it on the shelf and you're like, what is that? So in the box, you get the adventure booklet, and we're going to spend most of the video talking about this because I have thoughts. You get a map, and if we open up the map we're going to save them. I'm going to talk about the map along with the adventure. Let's focus on the minis first, because I think the minis are the best part of these boxes. But like I say, they're the part that adds the most to the cost. So it really depends on what the set is. So this set comes with a bunch of automata, including some like robot cyber doggies, and they've got these really awesome molded bases that have a bunch of detail on them, and they're all pre-built, so you can just pull them out of the box and use them straight away. As I said, I'm pretty sure that they're PVC plastic and not injection molded plastic, just by the level of detail on them and the fact that they're all pre-assembled. But they're really nice quality. Like the Cyber Hound, you can see it has kind of like sinewy muscle fibers, and you can see some details of like the mechanical links and like pieces of its spine and things, and it's really cool. Or if we take out the cog seer, which is like one of the main bosses, it has all of this detailing down these pieces of cloth that are draped over its shoulders that are really nice. In terms of sizing, I'd put these in line with some of the WizKids stuff. So they've got quite slender proportions for a lot of the arms and hands, and for a lot of the swords are absolutely massive, but then everything else is really slight and quite tiny. I think painting these guys up would be quite challenging if you're not a fairly experienced painter. And then their heads are also all weirdly small. Like on these big bruiser guys, they've got giant fists. Their heads are really tiny, but the detailing is really nice. It looks like it would take speed paints or contrast paints quite nicely. And I do really like that they've all got these molded bases with some extra detailing on them. So whether or not it's going to be worth it to you is largely going to depend on the miniatures and whether or not you think the miniatures match your vibe and whether you want to use them in your game. If you're running an Eberron game, for example, a whole bunch of automatons would be amazing. But if you're running a setting that doesn't have Warforged or like manufactured creatures, this set would be no good. You'd want to look at one of the other sets. Before we dive into the encounters themselves, I want to quickly talk about today's sponsor, which is my upcoming Kickstarter, the Clash Cheat Sheets for Revised 5th edition. Ever since the 2024 version of D&D was announced, I've had people asking if I'd update my Clash Cheat Sheets, and I'm excited to say that it's happening. The Kickstarter launches next week on February the 10th. These are digital reference sheets for every SRD class designed to help new and returning players learn the game faster and keep play moving at the table. Everything is written in simple, natural language with clear icons, trackers for limited use abilities, and a layout that makes it easy to find what you need mid-session. And this time around, I've rebuilt the whole thing with a big focus on accessibility and onboarding. So if you're a DM teaching new players, this is going to save you so much time. Not just that, but I have a load of stretch goals planned that are going to turn this into a complete starter toolkit for brand new groups. You can sign up to get notified when we go live using the link in the description, but for now, back to the video. Which brings us on to the actual encounters themselves. So you get a booklet and a map. The map's double-sided. Depending on what box you get, it might be two distinct maps, one on each side, or it might be a variant map. And we're going to look at the map first, because while the map is lovely and detailed, I don't know if it'll come across on camera. It's a very dark map. Like, I am in a room with a lot of light in it. There's a lot of studio lights going on. I've got like 4 or 5 lights pointed at me, plus some bounce light in the room. And this is still a very dark map, and the one that's included in the Titan box. If I go ahead and grab that and unfill that, there are sections of this map that I just can't even tell what is going on in. So open this up and you can see that this is an incredibly dark map. This is the one that comes in the Titan one, the one with that large miniature. And there are bright spots in the map, but in between them, there are sections that are so difficult to read. Unless you're in a bright room, all of this detail is going to get lost. And I talked about this in my Heroes of the Borderlands video, but I think what has happened here is you have digital artists making these maps who aren't used to designing for print, and then they print the maps out and they look at them and they go, yeah, that looks fine, that looks good. And they're not used to bumping up their values, because things, when you print them dark, don't look as vibrant, they don't look as saturated, they don't look as good because of the printing process. So I think that it's a case of they could do with designing their maps in the first instance to be a bit brighter. But in the Steelborn one, you get this map of this armored transport that's carrying these creatures on one side, and then on the other side, you get an interior of that space. And again, this is a map that has a lot of light points, and then a lot of sections where there is detail. Like if I pull it up right up to my face, I can see little lines of panels and things in this area. So there's detail there, but it's not made it to print. They just need to bring those values up in whatever design software they're using. Looking at these areas here, it gives sort of an incarnate vibe. Like this wall boundary especially has very incarnate vibes to it, but then I don't recognize a lot of the interior bits, so I don't know whether they're doing it all custom jobs or blending elements, but whatever they're doing, they need to bring those values up. And then let's talk about the adventure. And I've seen a lot of people talking online about how good these adventures are, and I had to go back and reread a lot of the kind of other things talking about them online and reread this book a couple times because I just didn't agree with it. And I hate to say this. This is the second time I've recorded this video because the footage was unusable the first time. But in that first time, I went off on a huge ranty tangent about this booklet. And I went back after that and reread it like 3 or 4 times and went and read a bunch of reviews. My problem with this adventure, with the Titan adventure, is that it is set up perfectly fine. It introduces you, tells you to read all of the elements, get everything ready. And then straight away, it gives you my least favorite way to interact with an adventure, which is generic banding of DCs. So if you're playing at levels 1 to 4, your base DC is always going to be level 12. At levels 5 to 10, your base DC is always going to be DC 14. At levels 10 and above, your base DC is always going to be DC 18. And throughout the book, they do have some modifiers for this, like standard DC plus 2, standard DC minus 2. But for the most part, your players are going to be rolling the same DC the entire way through, which is super boring and doesn't account for the underlying maths of the game. Same with damage levels. It'll be like, take standard damage, and D4 damage is fine at level 1, but at level 4, D4 damage is much less impactful. Same at level 10, D10 damage is basically nothing already at level 10, and at level 18, D10 damage is so insignificant. In terms of the setup, the adventure does a pretty good job. It explains who the Steelborn are. It gives you some rumors for what the Steelborn's creation myth could be. It gives you some hooks for why the players might be pursuing this adventure. And then it gives you some kind of introduction to the adventure itself. And all of that is perfectly fine. Where this book really starts falling apart is once you get to the mechanical adventure design. And it is very clear to me that whoever has written this doesn't understand the fundamental maths and design fundamentals of 5th edition, because this very first encounter, which is the ambush of the Steelborn, even though the game is like, oh, you can run this at level 1, it presents a number of enemies in this first encounter which when you total up all of their XP and put them all together, it's a number of enemies that should be appropriate for a 10th level party. And if you put a first level party of 4 players against this batch of enemies, it is going to be a bad time. Or it should be a bad time. But the problem is, when we flip back here to the back of the book where the monsters are, the monster design is all over the place. So here we've got a CR4 assassin that's doing 10 damage per attack, making 3 attacks per round, so doing 30 damage. But then we go to our CR8 creature, and if it's not casting spells, it's doing 1 attack that deals 5 damage, but then the way that it casts spells is really convoluted and unclear. So it casts up to 4 spells, depending on how many obelisks are intact. And then you look at the list of spells. The Cogs here is an innate spellcaster. Its spellcasting ability is tied to the strength of the obelisks. It has the following spells prepared. It has Chain Lightning prepared if it has 4 obelisks intact. But then it can cast up to 4 spells depending on how many obelisks are intact. So if there are 4 obelisks intact, can it cast Chain Lightning 4 times as part of its multi-attack? That is super unclear and not written well at all, because that is not how spell casting works within the normal function of 5th edition. And these problems in the monsters and the encounter design are prevalent throughout this adventure. When you get to the second encounter in the book, if we if we flip through that to the inner portion here, this encounter in the obscenely dark room. When you take the XP budget of the enemies in there, that is more suitable for a level 14 party. And while there is some guidance on adjusting the difficulty of the encounter in the book, even if you adjust the encounter down in difficulty based on the recommendations in the book, it still takes you to an XP budget that is suitable for a level 12 party. And the main boss in this encounter can summon reinforcements. So I don't see any way where you put a level 1 party into this encounter and they have a good time. Not without you having to do a lot of work as the GM to fudge numbers and keep the players alive. And I think that if they wanted this to be a 10th level adventure, or an 11th level adventure, or a 12th level adventure, just make it that. Don't say, oh, you can run this at any level, but then make very specific set numbers of enemies who are a specific set CR as part of your encounter. Taken together, it means that there's just no way that I would trust the adventure mechanics written into these books to put in front of my players, because I don't want to do the work to go and have to figure out if a pre-written adventure has the proper XP values and the proper maths of its monsters done for me. That is why I'm buying the product. If I'm buying it, it's because I want someone to have done that work for me. I want them to say, this adventure will suit a party of this level, and for, by and large, it to stick within that bounds. Obviously, D&D, any TTRPG, has a lot of wiggle room. You can make a perfectly mechanically sound adventure that is exactly a medium encounter for a 4th level party of 4 player characters, and things can go off the rail. They can get crits, the players can all be idiots, and things can spiral. That's obviously something that can happen. But that doesn't excuse designers from trying to put that effort in and be like, here is your baseline assumption. You have 4 players of party level 10. Everything has been designed around that. When we give you advice on adjusting the encounter, we assume that you're either adding players, removing players, or bumping up the levels. So it means while I do like the concept of epic encounters, I think the miniatures are cool, and I like there being third-party products that give you an adventure, a map, and some minis, that self-contained experience. This is not the one for me. I could not, in good conscience, go out and buy another one of these boxes with my own money because the mechanical writing is just not there. That said, if you are looking to just pick up a bunch of minis and want a framework for an adventure, you know, if you want to take the storyline of the adventure and be inspired by it and go in knowing that the mechanics don't make sense, and you want like a vibes kind of experience, more power to you. If you find one of these on sale in your friendly local game store at a great price, and you think, oh, that's a great price for a bunch of minis and a map and the ideas within an adventure, go for it. I'd love to know what you think of the epic adventures, especially if you have run them, down in the comments below. What have been your experiences with them? And if you want to keep watching, check out my unboxing of the new Heroes of the Borderlands starter set for D&D 5th edition over here. But until next time, happy gaming.